If this video showed up in your feed, it wasn't by chance. Carl called moments like these synchronicities, meaningful coincidences that hint at something deeper happening beneath your conscious awareness. You're here because you've gone through an experience that most people don't survive without being changed. Carl found that life presents what he called the final test, a confrontation with the unconscious so intense that it either breaks you or transforms you into something completely different. What makes this so profound is that most people facing this test think they're having a breakdown. They believe their mind is failing. But Carl realized they're actually going through a breakthrough, the moment when consciousness pushes beyond its old limits. If you're still watching, still searching, still trying to make sense of what happened, you've already passed. The question now is whether you understand the secret that this passage has revealed. Once you grasp what Carl discovered about this transformation, everything that once felt like suffering starts to make sense as a form of initiation. The final test doesn't announce itself with warnings or fanfare.
Ow.
It shows up disguised as crisis, disaster, or collapse. You might feel sudden isolation from people you thought would always be in your life. Everything that used to matter, career goals, social approval, carefully built identity, suddenly seems empty and meaningless. Not clinically depressed, you're experiencing what Carl called the withdrawal of psychic energy from external objects. Your unconscious is drawing you inward because something essential needs to change. The signs become clear. Once you know what to look for, you lose interest in maintaining the social masks that once felt necessary. Small talk becomes unbearable, and shallow relationships feel suffocating. You can't force excitement for things that used to thrill you. Friends and family notice the change and worry. They assume you're going through something negative and want you to return to normal. But here's the truth: you can't go back. You've outgrown the psychological container that once held you. Your psyche now demands more space, more honesty, more authenticity than your old life could ever provide. This isn't regression. It's growth that may appear as disintegration to those still living unconsciously. The isolation you experience during this phase serves a clear purpose, something Carl documented in hundreds of cases. When you are alone, removed from social validation and external distractions, you are compelled to confront your true self rather than the version you perform for the world. Most people spend their entire lives avoiding this confrontation. It's filling every moment with noise, activity, and the opinions of others. Doing so, they never face the questions that arise in silence. Who am I beneath all these roles? Do I genuinely want versus what I've been conditioned to seek? Which parts of my personality are authentic, and which are survival mechanisms designed to avoid rejection? These questions can be frightening because they don't have simple answers. They require sitting with uncertainty and ambiguity. Yet, developing tolerance for this uncertainty is precisely what happens during the final test. You are learning to exist without the psychological supports that most rely on their entire lives. Carl himself underwent this process, which became the foundation for understanding the final test. In 1913, at the age of 37, Carl was at the peak of his career. He was Freud's chosen successor, a leading figure in psychoanalysis. With a flourishing practice and international recognition, then something inside him shifted. He began experiencing visions and hearing voices. Colleagues feared he was having a psychotic break, while Carl questioned his own sanity. His friendship with Freud ended, and his professional standing became uncertain. He entered what he later described as a confrontation with the unconscious. For 6 years, Carl explored psychological territories that deeply unsettled him. He recorded this journey in what became the Red Book, a vast collection of visions, dialogues with inner figures, and illustrations of experiences that seemed to come from beyond his conscious mind. To the outside world, he appeared to be undergoing a complete breakdown. He withdrew from public life, paused his academic work, and devoted himself entirely to exploring these inner experiences. His wife Emma worried about his mental state, and colleagues doubted whether he would return to professional life. Some openly speculated that he had lost his mind entirely. Yet Carl was engaging in something revolutionary. He treated his own psyche as a laboratory, deliberately exploring the unconscious rather than suppressing or medicating it. He practiced what he called active imagination, dialoguing with inner figures from his visions. He drew mandalas to give shape to psychological states that lacked words. He allowed himself to experience emotions and insights that conventional psychology might have labeled pathological. Through this work, Carl discovered that what looked like madness from the outside was, in fact, a natural developmental process. The psyche was reorganizing itself at a deeper level. Empaths aren't broken. They are alchemists in progress. The Alchemist's Path offers exercises, youth-oriented boundaries, and 3 exclusive chapter videos designed to transform overwhelm into clarity, created by Surreal Mind. A 236-page, downloadable ebook is available now at surrealmind.com. It helps integrate previously unconscious content, fostering a more complete sense of self. He wasn't losing his mind. He was becoming sane in ways most people never dare to pursue. This is where Carl's journey exposes a controversy that still challenges mainstream psychology today. Society labels what Carl experienced as mental illness, crisis requiring medication and hospitalization. Yet Carl discovered it was an initiation, a necessary psychological death and rebirth. The final test is the moment when your old identity must dissolve to allow something more genuine to emerge. This isn't metaphorical. It is a literal psychological transformation in which everything you believed about yourself breaks down. Controversy isn't the suffering. Everyone recognizes that this process is painful. The real debate lies in Carl's assertion that this suffering is essential, purposeful, and ultimately beneficial. Modern psychiatry often aims to suppress these experiences with medication, while Carl insisted they must be consciously faced and integrated. This fundamental disagreement remains the dividing line between Carl's psychology and conventional mental health treatment. When someone undergoes their final test today, they are often diagnosed with depression or anxiety and prescribed medication to return to their previous functioning. But that previous functioning was the very problem. The psyche is attempting to break through to a higher level of consciousness, and medication can merely delay this essential transformation. The final test unfolds in 3 clear stages, each stripping away another layer of psychological defense until only the essential self remains. Understanding these stages helps you identify where you are in the process and what lies ahead. The first stage is what Carl called the withdrawal of projection. Most of your life, you've projected your power onto external sources. You blamed others for your problems, gave authority figures control over your self-worth, relied on others for your happiness or distress. You expected romantic partners to complete you, sought parental approval long denied, and waited for your boss or society to recognize your value. During this first stage of the final test, these projections collapse. You stop seeing your parents as all-powerful figures who shaped your life. You no longer believe your romantic partner holds the key to your fulfillment. You cease giving your boss or society the power to define your worth. This withdrawal feels like a loss because you're letting go of the comforting illusion that someone else is in charge of your life. But in reality, it's your first encounter with genuine power. You're reclaiming the psychic energy you once scattered across people and external situations. For the first time, you're confronted with the truth. Both the problem and the power have always resided within you. No one is coming to rescue you. No one can repair what's broken. The answers you seek have always been inside you. This realization is both shocking and freeing. Once projection fades, and you are faced with your own power and responsibility, you enter the stage that Carl considered the most challenging part of the journey. You meet your shadow, the parts of yourself you've long denied, suppressed, or projected onto others. Your shadow holds everything you consider unacceptable about yourself: the rage you've never expressed, the selfishness you've condemned, the cruelty you insist you lack, the sexuality you've judged as wrong, the ambition you've labeled arrogance, the laziness hidden behind busyness, the neediness masked by independence. All the qualities you've disowned emerge during this stage. You see clearly that you are capable of the same behaviors you've criticized in others. The harshest judgments you've made about people are actually descriptions of your own hidden traits. This realization can feel like moral collapse. If you contain these dark qualities, what does that mean for your inherent goodness? If you are capable of manipulation, cruelty, and selfishness, how are you different from those you've judged? Yet Carl discovered a profound truth that changes the entire shadow experience. Integrating the shadow doesn't make you a bad person, it makes you whole. The shadow is not evil. It is unconscious. These repressed qualities are not inherently harmful. They only become destructive when denied and acted out unconsciously. By bringing these shadow traits into awareness and accepting them as part of yourself, they lose their power to harm and become valuable resources. Rage transforms into healthy boundary setting and self-protection. Selfishness becomes self-care and the wisdom to prioritize your needs. Cruelty turns into discernment, knowing who deserves your kindness and who exploits it. Sexuality becomes a creative life force. Ambition becomes focused, drive toward meaningful achievement. These qualities no longer emerge unconsciously because you now choose when and how to express them instead of letting stress or triggers control. Shadow integration demands brutal honesty about your capacity for darkness. You must acknowledge that yes, you can lie when it benefits you. Yes, you can hurt others when threatened. Yes, you are capable of selfishness, manipulation, and cruelty. This acknowledgement may feel like losing your innocence or moral high ground, but it actually marks the beginning of true ethical awareness. By recognizing your potential for darkness, you can consciously decide how to handle these energies. You take responsibility for your shadow rather than acting it out unconsciously while claiming innocence. The third stage brings the most visible transformation. It's often unsettling those around you. Your persona, the social mask you've worn your entire life, falls away completely. The persona is the version of yourself you present to the world, the professional image, the family role, the carefully crafted personality designed to gain approval and avoid rejection. You likely spent decades perfecting this mask, making it so convincing that even you believed it was your true self. You learned exactly what to say to be liked and created different personas for different settings, one for work, another for family, another for friends. You became adept at reading social cues and adjusting your behavior to meet expectations. Eventually, maintaining this persona becomes impossible. You can no longer pretend. The enthusiasm you once had for social performances fades. You can't force yourself to care about impressing others. Actions that once came naturally now feel like unbearable acting. At a party, instead of working the room, you observe yourself doing it and feel disgusted. In a meeting, instead of managing your professional image, you notice how artificial everyone sounds, including yourself. Those who knew your persona may be confused or even threatened by your change. They wait for you to revert to your old self, offering advice to get back to normal, suggesting therapy or medication to restore your former personality. Family might accuse you of selfishness or negative changes. Friends may drift away because you no longer fulfill the role they expected. Colleagues might see you as difficult or unprofessional because you no longer play corporate social games. But the persona cannot return. It was never real. It was a strategy, a survival mechanism created to navigate a world that punished authenticity. Once you glimpse what lies beneath the mask, you cannot unknow it. You are left facing your essential self, exposed. Without the protective layer that made you socially acceptable, this stage feels like social death, and in many ways it is. The version of you that people knew is gone. Others must either accept the real you or leave your life. After the persona falls, stripped down to raw authenticity, most expect disaster. Society has conditioned you to believe that being authentic inevitably leads to destruction. But this is where Carl uncovered the revelation that changes everything. Passing the final test isn't about battling darkness, rebuilding defenses, or transcending your humanity. It's about accepting and integrating all that you've discovered. This is the key. Integration, not improvement, not transcendence, not pretending to rise above human darkness. Integration. You don't eliminate your shadow. You acknowledge it as part of your whole self. You learn to engage authentically while navigating social situations wisely. You don't project power onto external authorities. You claim your own authority while remaining humble about the limits of your knowledge. Integration involves holding the tension between opposites within yourself without forcing them into false simplicity. You can be both kind and cruel, so you consciously choose kindness while recognizing your capacity for cruelty. You can be both selfish and generous, so you practice generosity strategically while maintaining necessary self-interest. You contain both light and darkness and stop pretending the darkness doesn't exist. This is what Carl referred to as the union of opposites. You aren't trying to be purely good or purely light. You embrace your full human complexity. This integration creates a level of psychological stability that most people never reach. When you're no longer at war with yourself, when you accept your complete nature, life's challenges no longer destabilize you. You've already confronted the worst, your own inner darkness. Carl documented specific abilities that emerge in those who successfully integrate their unconscious contents. These are not supernatural powers. They are natural capacities freed when you stop expending all your energy. Maintaining psychological defenses first, you gain a remarkable calm in chaotic situations. External chaos cannot affect you the way it affects those who haven't done this work. You've traversed your psyche's underworld and returned. Challenges like job loss, breakups, or social rejection still hurt, but they cannot destroy your core sense of self. Second, your ability to read people becomes striking. You instantly see through social masks because you no longer wear one yourself. You detect lies and manipulation effortlessly, having stopped deceiving yourself. You sense emotional patterns and hidden motives because your unconscious is now conscious. Others may call you judgmental or overly analytical, but you're simply observing reality rather than illusions. This clarity can feel isolating. Once you see truth, you cannot unsee it. You recognize dysfunction in relationships, organizations, social systems that others are invested in ignoring. Third, you become largely immune to manipulation. Attempts to control you through guilt, shame, or social pressure become ineffective. You've withdrawn your projections, so authority figures no longer hold power over you. You've integrated your shadow, so people cannot weaponize your denied traits. You've shed your persona, so social approval no longer dictates your actions. When someone tries to guilt or shame you, you recognize these as manipulative tactics rather than valid criticism. You become increasingly difficult to control, which can feel threatening to people and systems that rely on dominating others. Fourth, you cultivate an unshakable sense of purpose, not fate or predetermination, but a deep inner knowing that your life holds meaning beyond social approval or external accomplishments. You feel connected to something greater than the ego. It emerges from embracing your individuality and recognizing that your unique mix of talents, wounds, and experiences exists for a reason. You stop trying to live someone else's life or meet others' expectations. You begin living from your true self. If you're still watching this video and these ideas resonate with your experiences, you belong to a rare group. Carl referred to those who complete this journey as the awakened ones. Carefully distinguishing awakening from spiritual inflation, you aren't special because you are superior to others. You are simply aware in ways most people avoid. Your suffering wasn't random or meaningless, it was training. Every moment of isolation taught self-reliance. Every loss of interest in shallow pursuits redirected your energy toward depth. Every uncomfortable confrontation with your shadow expanded your psychological capacity. Every time your persona faltered, you became slightly more authentic. The challenge wasn't meant to break you, it was meant to open you. To dismantle the limited identity suffocating your potential, and to force you to confront the fullness of who you truly are beneath all conditioning and performance. You've passed simply by grasping this concept. Most people never realize what's happening during their final test. They get medicated, distracted, or persuaded to rebuild their defenses, returning to unconscious living. They resume their old lives with psychological growth halted, but you sought meaning in your experience. You refused the conventional notion that something was wrong with you, kept questioning until you discovered frameworks like Carl's that interpret your experiences as transformation rather than pathology. This choice to pursue understanding, instead of comfort, is what signifies that you've truly passed. This insight has implications beyond individual psychology. Anyone who successfully integrates their unconscious and passes the final test becomes a vessel of more evolved consciousness. You don't need to teach or preach. Your presence alone interacts differently with the world. People sense a fundamental change in you, even if they can't describe it. Some will be drawn to this quality because it gives them permission to explore their own authenticity, recognizing in you a possibility they've long suppressed. Others may feel unsettled by your integrated state because it reflects everything they're still denying within themselves. Your presence acts as a mirror, revealing their own inauthenticity. And rather than confronting their defenses, they often project blame onto you for their discomfort. Both reactions indicate that you are no longer functioning on the same psychological level, as most people remain identified with their persona and projections. You've completed a developmental stage that few ever reach. Carl believed this process marks the next step in human evolution, not biological, but psychological. As more individuals face their personal final test and achieve integration, collective consciousness gradually transforms. What seems rare or impossible in one generation becomes the norm in the next. In this way, your journey isn't just personal healing. It's pioneering psychological terrain for future generations. It's making it easier for them to navigate because you've mapped the path first. Your courage in confronting your own darkness, dropping masks, and withdrawing projections sends ripples into the collective unconscious, easing the way for others to do the same. Perhaps the most remarkable aspect of passing this final test many fear that integrating their shadow will make them cold or distant, that removing the persona will isolate them, or that withdrawing projections will destroy trust. In truth, the opposite occurs. Joy becomes genuine because it no longer relies on external validation. Connections become real because you're no longer performing for acceptance. Life becomes more vivid, more immediate, and more alive once you stop filtering it through layers of psychological defense. Carl observed that integrated individuals do not retreat from life. They engage more fully. They can embrace the entire spectrum of human experience, the ecstasy and agony, the beauty and horror, without fragmenting or dissociating. This capacity for wholeness is the gift granted to those who consciously pass the final test. Your presence here watching this video is evidence that you've reached this stage. You recognized your own experience in Carl's framework. You understood that your psychological death was, in fact, a birth. You are ready to claim the reward. Your suffering has purchased integration as your superpower. You embody multitudes and are no longer afraid of any part of yourself. The darkness you once feared has become your ally. The masks you wore have transformed into authenticity. Power you surrendered has returned to its rightful place. You stand in full psychological complexity. It's complete as a human being. This is what Carl meant by individuation, becoming the individual. You were always meant to be beneath all conditioning and collective programming. You are no longer like everyone else, and that is precisely the point. You have evolved beyond the collective unconscious into something rarer and more valuable. Your next chapter will be unique because it is being written from your integrated self, not from borrowed scripts or societal expectations. You will make choices that may seem puzzling to those still operating from their personas. You will establish boundaries that appear strict to those projecting power. You will speak truths that might make others uncomfortable. All of this is not out of cruelty or superiority, but from the simple reality that you can no longer live inauthentically. Type "I passed the test" in the comments to acknowledge this transformation consciously and deliberately. Claim what you have earned through your struggles and your willingness to face what you would rather have avoided. If this video helped, you see your experience differently. Hit the like button and subscribe for more insights into Carl's psychology and the evolution of consciousness. Share this with someone navigating their own final test, trying to understand why their world feels like it's falling apart. Let them know that what appears as a breakdown is actually a breakthrough. You have discovered a secret that could transform your life. The final test was not meant to destroy you, it was initiating you into the rare group of humans who truly know themselves. In the alchemist's path, perception training for empaths, you will learn how to turn overwhelm into wisdom through practical exercises, Carl-inspired boundaries, and step-by-step perception training. This guide includes 3 exclusive chapter videos to deepen every lesson. Beautifully designed 8.5x11 downloadable ebook is available now. Begin your training today. Feel deeply while thinking clearly. Get The Alchemist's Path at surrealmind.com. Thanks for watching. See you in the next dimension.